What's up, everybody, and welcome back to TarHeelIllustrated.com. I'm Jacob Turner. He's our very own publisher, Andrew Jones. And AJ, we're here for another daily drop, and we're going to discuss in this one potential starting lineup and rotation for Carolina basketball next season. So let's dive straight into this. So I'm going to kick it to you. I think we're on the same page based on talking off camera about what our starting five would be, but I'll let you lead it off and kind of tell me what you think the starting lineup will be for the Tar Heels before we dive into maybe some more rotational stuff with some of the guys we think could make a big impact coming off the bench. So who do you think starts for North Carolina? Let's start with the point guard position.
It's going to be Kyan Evans.
Yeah.
I can go 1 through 5 right now if you want.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, go 1 through 5.
Yeah, I think it's going to be Evans, Trimble, Bogovac, Wilson, and Vesar. That's going to be your starting lineup. I can see a lot of interchangeable stuff with Stevenson at the 3 and the 4. I can see Powell at the 2 and the 3. I can see Dixon sort of backing up at the 1 and the 2, maybe a little Trimble backing up at the point. They do have a question mark. If there's a blown knee at point with Evans, they're in trouble. And if there's a blown knee with Vesar in the post, they're in trouble based on the roster the way it is right now. But if everybody stays healthy, you can have, I think Wilson could back up a little bit at the 5 when needed. He's a strong player. He's a good rebounder. He's a pretty highly graded defender for a young freshman, a big man. And I also think that the Zayden High James Brown battle can render some minutes, probably High because he's more athletic, more active. He could come in and just fire you some fouls and just kind of muck things up a little bit. So I think that they have a lot of interchangeable parts. Trimble could play a 3 at times. They really want to go small. Maybe Bogovac is more comfortable at the 2, and he's better defending at the 2 than the 3. So maybe Trimble's the 3. Mm-hmm. Trimble's a very good defender, but also a guy like Jonathan Powell's a very good defender. And he can shoot. You may see games where he's a better matchup. One thing that Hubert has shown us, and he certainly did this past year when he had a lot of different parts, is while he kind of switched things up in pockets and during the course of the season, there were games where he would go with one guy over another for long stretches because he made more sense in that game. I can see that happening with this team. Now, I don't see games where Trimble's going to play 18 minutes. I think you're going to need him on the floor a lot. I think Evans is going to be a 30-minute guy. I think that Vesar is going to be a 30-minute guy. Wilson likely close to 30. Bogovac, if he's as good as what the scouts over there are saying, he's probably close to 30, but you've got lots of worthy guys coming off the bench that can give you 20 plus. Stevenson can play 20 plus. Powell can play 20 plus. I really like Dixon. He had a great senior year. If you're the Washington Post Metropolitan Player of the Year, you could play ball. Yeah. And he can maybe help them some. Jaden Young has got a lot of experience. He's a luxury to have in the backcourt in case something happens. So they still don't have the prototype backup point guard unless maybe Dennis is that guy. There's nothing that says that he truly is yet. Maybe he is when he shows up. Maybe they see that in him. But and the same thing with the 5. I mean, you go Vesar and then there's a drop off, obviously. But if they can stay healthy, that's a pretty good lineup, 1 through 5. It's certainly 4 guys that can shoot from the perimeter, and you've got 2 bangers in Vesar and Wilson, and you've got, that backcourt, you've got 22, 22, and 21 years old. So you've got guys that have done big things. You got a point guard in Evans who was really good against Memphis in the NCAA tournament, so he's played at an exceptionally high level on the biggest stage. Bogovac is a pro, and Seth Trimble is an entrenched Carolina guy now who must improve 2 things. He must be a better perimeter shooter and finish better at the rim. If he does those 2 things, his average goes from 11.5 points to 15.5 points.
Yeah, that would just be absolutely massive for North Carolina, especially with just we talked about it before, there's just not a lot of production from last year returning. It's the least amount of production since they've returned for 06. So if Trimble can increase those numbers, that goes a long way and being a big positive for North Carolina. I agree with your starting five. I agree with everything you said about the rotation. I think a lot of Carolina fans will. I think the starting five in a lot of ways, I don't want to say it picks itself, but I think when you look at it makes a lot of sense that you go with those five guys. You hit on a little bit there. I want to, before we kind of head on out of here, I want to talk about strengths and weaknesses of the starting five and kind of the roster right now. We've already hit on some of this, but let's hit it on a little bit more. We'll start with weaknesses because I think you've hit on a few already that were on top of my mind that I wanted to discuss. I think the backup point guard ones, I'll say this. I think the point guard position is a question mark right now. It's not that I don't like Kyon Evans. It's just if he maybe comes in and maybe isn't what they expect him to be, what do you do after that? That's where it gets really worrisome. That's something we've talked about, I think, a little bit on camera, but a lot off camera, because there really isn't a solid answer behind him in terms of, okay, if he doesn't maybe work out like they need him to, or he gets, God forbid he gets hurt or is out for a few games, who kind of steps into that role? There's not really a ready-made guy there. I've made jokes to you that, like, man, if Evans doesn't come in and excel and kind of hit the ground running, and we see a situation in December where Seth Trimble's starting at point guard. That's not what you want if you're North Carolina. Again, I'm joking when I say that, but there is an alternate reality where that could be the case. With
all due respect to Seth, that wouldn't be best for him either.
No, it wouldn't be best for him.
He will tell you, he played little point a few stretches last year. I remember he did it against San Diego State, and I asked him in the hallway outside the locker room there in Dayton about that. And he's like, yeah, I can play point some. I mean, these guys all think they can do everything, but I don't think that would be ideal for his game. And by the way, some of the European scouts think that Luka would be a future point guard over there.
Interesting.
He might be the guy who has the ball in his hands on the shot clock situation, because he can handle the ball. He can really create off the dribble. He's very comfortable seeing the floor when he's handling the ball and also getting his shots. So Kyon Evans has proven he can get shots in shot clock situations too. Mm-hmm. So having those two out there might cause some problems for opponents. But I agree with you about the point guard thing. I still wonder how much Evans can facilitate. Mm-hmm. Because if he's maybe what he was at Colorado State, I think Carolina needs more than that. A lot of his assists at Colorado State went to a first-round draft pick on the wing.
Yeah.
So it'll be very interesting to see how that plays out. I do think that'll be a question mark that hangs until they get well into the meat of ACC play, to be honest with you. Also the backup big situation, which is probably what else you want to talk about.
Yeah, I want to hit on that too, because you brought up a good point with that. There is some question marks there because it's just, especially to lose a guy like Lubin, who I think would have been really nice to have down there in the front court because, again, of what he was able to do at the end of last season. You kind of pencil him in for something going into this year, but also just being another, experienced body down there that has some talent. So, yeah, I think there is a little bit of a question mark in terms of, the backup guys at that big, down low. There are things to like about some of the guys that came in, but, I think Vesar's ceiling is really high, but what is the drop off like when maybe he's not playing or he comes out of the game? I think that's something that we'll have to kind of see develop during the season. Besides those two, because I know you hit on those earlier on as well, is there anything else? I know you can nitpick a ton of different things, but is there one other thing you might look at as I don't want to use the word glaring weakness, but a relatively obvious weakness that you look at and say, we're going to have to really see how that develops, because that's something I'm going to have circled, before the season starts.
Yeah, I got to see them.
Yeah. It's a lot of new faces out there.
I'm sure that some things I might say would be a bit of a question mark now would be answered when I see them, and maybe some new question marks would surface. I still wonder about the drivability of this team, the slashability of this team. I wonder how well they play playing the baseline's huge. I love when teams play the baseline because it really opens up the court for you. A lot of teams don't play the baseline much, and they're wasting an opportunity to use the full court and also do so. Whereas the defender may think, the out of bounds line serves the defender, but he's a defender that can't affect the shot, so to speak, can't impede movement. So I don't know if they have some of those things. I do think they're going to be a pretty good perimeter shooting team. They have enough guys that have shot threes, and they're adding a ton of threes from last season, not including what Luka did. So there's a lot of guys that have hit a lot of big threes. So I think that's going to be something. But do they end up settling for threes way too much? Are they a team that just sort of spreads out and shoots threes? And I think when you got, and Hubert's talked about this, if you got 4 guys out there and even a 5th guy that floats out there to shoot a 3-pointers become contested when the defense is out there. One of the values in having guys that can drive and kick is because you suck the defense and you force defenders to react to go to the 3. If they're defending someone and they're just playing volume man defense and the ball swings and his guy has a 3, they can close out a little easier. So I think that's something to think about when the season approaches. Does this team settle too much for 3s, too quickly for 3s, because most all of them could shoot it, and because it's something that each has done previously where they were. Mm-hmm. But I think the composition needs to squeeze more out of their game. So it'll be very, very interesting. Also, I wonder what kind of transition team they're going to be.
Yeah.
We just don't know. I think they're nice parts. You got a big who can run 94 feet. The last big to run 94 feet at a breathtaking rate was Tyler Zeller. He was fantastic running 94 feet. They've had a lot of good ones since then too. He was sort of he's the top of the list of the centers, the 5s that ran the floor. Tyler Hansbrough was really good at it too. So it'll be very interesting to see how they are in transition. Do they shoot a lot of 3s in transition? Mm-hmm. Do they have I think the secondary break with this group, because of so many guys' ability to shoot the 3 or the pull-up jumper inside the key, I think that's something we can see a lot of from this group. It's going to take some time. I do think the easier schedule is good for this team because they have to develop some chemistry. Hubert not only has to see who can play, but he has to see who plays best together, where the best synergy is. And it may not be the starting 5 that we think it is. That might be the group that takes the floor first, but who's on the floor at crunch time? If Luka is not a B-plus defender, maybe Jonathan Powell's out there instead. We don't know. It'll play itself out. I do think that Hubert's got to feel pretty good right now knowing he's got some flexibility, but he also has to watch hard here in their workouts right now. All right, who else is going to run the point? All right, Zayden, James, go at it. Who's going to step up? This is Zayden High, even though he didn't play last year, he was working out. We broke the story about him using the facilities last December because I was doing the 3 things with you, and I was using the players' lounge because they were already breaking down the court, and Zayden High walks in.
Yeah.
So he's using a facility. So he's in his 3rd year since high school. He should be ready to help some, if nothing else, to defend, rebound, and be a body and be an active body. I think he's a screamer and yeller, and that can help them too. Because I don't know what the personality of a lot of these guys is.
Yeah, we just don't know.
Seth's got personality. Vesar's pretty vocal. And Zayden High was before. Now, if he can actually have some success and be vocal, that would be a huge plus for this team. But I don't know about Evans. I don't know about Bogovac. I don't know about Caleb Wilson. He's a freshman. How vocal can he be? I don't know about a lot of those guys. So we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, we definitely will. Real quickly, just hit on the strengths. I think we've already hit on a lot of them too, but I think there are strengths on this team. I really like what they've brought in with Vesar. I think he's going to be really good for North Carolina. I think he's exactly kind of what they needed at that 5 spot. Seth Trimble coming back, if he can take a next step in his game, I think that's a big positive for North Carolina. But I think right now with what we know of the type of player he is, but I think that's great. And I think that's a positive for the team, but off the court and the leadership that he has on the court as well, I think that's going to be a big thing because I expect him to kind of be the spokesperson for this team. When you look at the fact that he's been there will be going into his 4th year. He's one of the few guys on the roster who actually came from last year's team. He's one of the few guys on the roster that came in as a freshman and is still there as a senior. He's the only guy on the roster that's done that. So I think that is a strength of this team. And I think what Carolina has done and what Hubert Davis has done, we've talked about this a lot, is he's added height and he's added 3-point shooters. So I think on the surface, before we actually can see it, and defense as well, I think Carolina has improved in all 3 of those areas. And those were 2 major, things last year that affected North Carolina. I think in particular, the size. I think Carolina just was a small team, and it really plagued them at times last year, especially when they went up against highly ranked, tall, athletic, and physical teams. Carolina just, look at the Clemson game and a couple games against Duke. They just couldn't cope with it at times. So I think they have definitely improved in that area on paper, at least. Or any other,
well, they're bigger, but they may not be better on the glass. The one thing about that they brought in is they haven't. Vasar's an okay rebounder. Lubin, pound for pound, was a better rebounder. So, Jay Walsh was a pretty good rebounder.
Mm-hmm.
He had couple really bad games on the glass, but he had a lot of 6, 7, 8s, in 12, 15 minutes, that kind of thing. Last year's team was not a very good rebounding team, but they worked hard on the glass. How hard will this team work on the glass? How will they be at last year's level on the glass, which was one of the worst rebounding teams that I've covered at North Carolina?
Mm-hmm.
Can they at least be that? I mean, there's some question that they might not even be that good on the glass. Again, it's a wait and see thing. And by the way, I have a daily drop idea.
Oh, you just got one on that.
We should do an X Factor 1, X Factor 2, X Factor 3 daily drop.
Oh, that'd be cool. Yeah. I like that. Yeah, we'll do that at some point this offseason. That's a good idea. You got to keep racking up them ideas. I know you like to text me when you're on your walk or email me on your walk. That's when you come up with that's when you come up with your best daily drop ideas, I should say.
Yeah, and we like to do them every day in the off season. This gives us time to talk about a lot of other things too, but yeah, it's kind of fun to let some of these things settle and we can hit on these topics and then we can listen to them in December and hear how wrong we were.
Yeah, hear how stupid we were for thinking this. Yeah.
Cade Tyson. People, we're all talking about Bogovac like we did Cade Tyson last year. We can only go by what we see, what we hear, what other people expect. I think that there's more proven stuff here with this guy. And by the way, Cade at Minnesota, I hope he does
nice
well up there.
Yeah.
Sometimes I just think that he got off to a rough start. A lot of it was mental. He never kind of
never really recovered. Yeah,
he'll get an opportunity, and he's playing for Nico Medved up there. By the way, he was Kyan Evans' coach at Colorado State. He's a really good coach, and he's a guy that knows how to get a lot out of shooters. So it'll be interesting to see if he has some success there.
Yeah, no doubt about it, man. Yeah, looking forward to see what he does in Minnesota. But I think that's a good place to wrap this one up. Get involved in the comments. Let us know, what do you think maybe some strengths and weaknesses of this roster right now? And obviously hit on the number one topic here. What do you think the starting five is going to be for North Carolina next season? Do you agree with our starting five, or do you maybe see it going in another direction? We want to hear from you guys as always. And that's why we do a lot of these daily drop topics, talking about this kind of stuff. It's early June, it's a long time before the season starts, but like to, have these conversations and have this kind of discourse. This is stuff that, is being talked about on our boards sometimes and on social media. And this is stuff that, I think people, you go grab a drink or something at a bar with a fellow Carolina fan, you talk about this kind of stuff, which is how we try to kind of approach some of these daily drop topics. So get involved in the comments below. As always, guys, make sure you like, share, subscribe, notification bell too, so every single time we upload, you won't miss anything that we put out over here at Tar Heel
Illustrated. Are you saying we should drink during one of our podcasts?
It probably wouldn't be a bad idea.
Didn't Joe and Joe, they have a beer?
Yeah.
Didn't they have a sip of theirs maybe in one of their pods?
Yeah, I think they do. I think they might have they don't even have like a brewery sponsorship over
When
there.
I had a radio show in Wilmington, there was this guy, Pete the cab driver, used to call up. He was a big Yankee fan, even though he had a Derek Jeter jersey with Jeter's name on the back. So we used to give him all kinds of crap about that because they're not supposed to have that. He came in one time, he won a contest or something, came in one time to do an hour in studio, and he comes in, he pulls up, reaches into a backpack and pulls open a Miller Tall Boy. And precisely at that moment, the station manager, most of its windows in a studio, station manager walks by and he's like, so the first timeout, the first commercial break, I had to go out there and he read me the riot act. I'm like, I didn't know Pete the cab driver had a beer with him.
He was going to pull a 40 ounce out of his bag down there when he walked in.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, we should do a podcast, just do Edward 40 hands, if you know where that is. Just tape 2 40s to our hands and we can't finish the pod, and we can't stop the podcast till we finish them. Now, we may never do another podcast again because God knows what will be said, but it would be a very interesting one to say the least. So maybe one day. One day we'll practice on it.
That's like, what, 7.5 beers?
It's quite a lot. Yes. Yeah, that's about right. It's good math. Yeah, that's good. That's good math. I'd be gone 7.5 beers. I'd be sleeping.
Would you really?
Oh, yeah. I'm a lightweight, man. I'm a lightweight. It's funny. I'm about to turn 30, but it's like I was never a massive drinker anyway. But, I like if we go out to eat, I'll get a beer or two. That's my kind of scene. But, man, it's like the older I've gotten, man, I drank three, 4 beers, and I'm just not feeling good in the morning. So I just not worth it for me. Give me a beer or two and I'm good to go. But drinking 240 sounds just absolutely disgusting right now.
Back in the day, I was on a very long, intense grind, a campaign to see how many I could consume. That was
like that. I have friends
my
like
whole career. That was sort of our thing. So for some reason, I think even though I rarely ever drink anymore, Jacksonville Beach, my wife and I, we closed Lynch's Irish Pub a couple of times. It was
nothing wrong with that, man. Absolutely.
And you know, when you get the bill, you know how many you had.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
So I'm not going to say anything about it now, but I'm not 20-year-old AJ. That's for damn sure.
Yeah, you're not your prime anymore. Probably.
I'm not my prime anymore,
yeah.
But you know, it's I could still hit a 3-pointer every once in a while.
Yeah, absolutely. You still got it in you for sure. Yeah, and maybe one day we'll crack one open on you. We've done a lot of podcasts. One thing we've never done is cracked a cold one on it. So
yeah, I don't think that would go too well.
We probably would. Yeah. Can
you imagine the stories after about when you hit your mark?
Good Lord. I mean, it'd be a 7.5
hour me talking because you'd be slumped over.
I'd just be a 6.5 hour podcast too with all the stuff we'd be talking about.
If you guys think I ramble on now, imagine if I get a few pops in me.
Yeah, you may never do another podcast again with some of the stories you might be throwing out there. You might
get my wife in here to get a few and have her tell stories about me. That'll get 100,000 views.
Good Lord, that people would absolutely love to hear all that, all your dirty laundry behind the scenes, especially coming from Kim. I'd love to hear that. And that's what we should. I'd rather do that than us drink a beer on a podcast. It'd be more interesting to me. So,
well, she's in Asheville right now. I'm actually solo in the house with little Isabel.
Nice, man. Nothing wrong with that. A little alone time, get to relax a little bit. You know, nothing wrong with that.
Orioles and not feel guilty.
Yeah, heck yeah, man. It's like
they won 4 in a row. Well, as we're taping this, they won 4 in a row.
Yeah, and then Kim and Ellie don't have to deal with you for a week too, so that's nice. Probably loving that.
That's plus for them. It's plus for me, plus for them.
Yeah, win-win situation for everybody, right? But but yeah, let's go ahead and get the heck out of here, man. Got some more pods to do before we wrap it up today, and make sure you keep it locked to TarIllustrated.com because we'll be pumping these daily drops out all off season long. Thanks, guys. We'll see y'all next time.
Thanks.